Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on When Algorithms Buy, Rethinking the Digital Shelf for the Age of AI Shoppers, hosted by My Digital Shelf and presented today by Shalion and Nestlé Canada. My name's Sarah Kingham, and I'll be hosting this webinar with you for the next 45 minutes. I'd like to remind you that you can send in any questions or comments that you may have throughout the webinar today using the chat room feature, and there'll be time at the end to answer most of your questions. You are also welcome to send them in anonymously in case you'd prefer to do it that way. And also a reminder that I will be sending you the webinar recording after this webinar. So within 24 hours, you should receive an email from me. Feel free to also share that with any colleagues or industry associates that weren't able to join us today or weren't able to sign up. So it's my pleasure today to be joined by our three speakers today. I'm going to start by introducing Armando Tenias, who's the Customer E-commerce Manager at Nestlé Canada. Welcome to the webinar. How are you doing today, Armando?
Thank you so much, Sarah. Doing very well and glad to be here today.
Yes, we're very excited to be with you. And I see you have your colleague, Jose Garcia Gomez, who's the Director of E-commerce at Nestlé Canada. So welcome to the webinar. And how are you, Jose?
I am really well. Thank you very much, Sarah. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're very excited to be hearing from you. And last but not least, we have Jack Lindberg, who's the VP of Product and Marketing Strategy at Shalion. How are you, Jack?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah.
Thanks for joining. And I did note before we went live that we have three fine gentlemen wearing lovely blazers today. So everyone's quite serious about the topic of AI, right? So I know, Jack, you're going to kick things off for us with some very exciting slides. So I'm going to hand over to you for the first portion. Over to you, Jack.
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jack Lindberg, and I'm the VP of Product and Marketing Strategy at Shalion. Today, we're going to talk about the single biggest shift to happen in e-commerce since the invention of the search engine, AI shopping agents. Let's see if I can get the slides to go. Here we go. My role at Shalion puts me at the intersection of data, retail, and emerging technology. And for the last, I don't know, year or so, my team and I have been focused about how the AI shopping agent technology will impact the brands and agencies we work with every day. But before we dive in, I wanted to briefly introduce Shalion for those of you that aren't super familiar. We are your all-in-one partner for the digital shelf, amplified with AI insights. We partner with brands and agencies across the entire spectrum of our product suite, from market share tracking to commerce media intelligence, which provides really in-depth information about retail media through the lens of digital shelf, to our digital shelf Maestro solution, which is our agentic digital shelf insights suite, to our Amazon solutions such as Amazon Perfect Store, which provides even more in-depth information about the Amazon digital shelf ecosystem using Amazon's specialized nomenclature, even down to things like quick commerce or restaurant menu tracking. We don't just do digital shelf health. Our goal is to take the digital shelf data and turn that to decisions that help you win. This context is super critical because we're entering an era that poses a new fundamental question. How do you sell to a customer that can't see your branding, can't feel your lifestyle photography, and is immune to that sort of emotional persuasion we all feel as shoppers? That customer is the AI shopping agent, and it's coming much faster than you think. I would even say it's already here for a lot of people. Okay. For the last 20 years or so, the digital shelf has been constantly evolving. We started with basic organic search on search engines, then came things like paid ads or display ads, maybe programmatic ads, social commerce, the explosion of retail media. But at each stage, brands had to do new layers of tracking, new layers of measurement. We're here to talk about the next evolution, agentic AI. This adds a new layer to all of our jobs, moving from visibility to verifiability, how to get these agents to pick your products in the sea of potential products out there. This isn't something that's coming 10 years down the road, the tipping point is already here. According to Capgemini, 58% of consumers have already started to replace traditional search with generative AI for some of their queries. We already have seen that 61% of shoppers have tried using a shopping assistant or an AI tool. Also, when we survey retailers, according to Salesforce, 75% of retailers say agentic commerce or AI agent shopping will be essential for their future. The way your customers are discovering products is changing right now. This new evolution of agentic shopping, or what I've been calling delegated commerce, where you give parts or all of that shopping process to this agent, is the final step towards thinking about a whole end-to-end AI shopping project. Instead of giving a list of links that the shopper could pick from, these agents are giving you a single justified answer or just a box on their doorstep. This means you're no longer selling to a person, you're selling to their logical, data-driven AI proxy. So in this new economy of agent shopping, we need to be prepared for the different types of modes of agent interactions that are happening. Success here requires having knowledge about the different types of agents that happen, and as a brand, being prepared to think about whether you should have an agent or not. So some of the core agents are agent to site, where the agent helps you shop directly on a single merchandiser's site. This would be something like Rufus, for example, on Amazon. Agent to agent, where a brand website would have, for example, on a D2C site, might have their own agent. Or the most common thing we've noticed or that we see in the marketplace are brokered agents, where something like a Gemini or a ChatGPT or a Perplexity serve as an intermediary between the shopper and the retailer or the shopper and the brand to help them buy products. Okay, so how does this new agent think? It reads fields, not feelings. What that means is the AI is looking for specificity in your context. If you're in your content, if you say things like long lasting, that's not really helpful. You need to be more specific, say something like 12-hour battery life. It's obsessed with trust signals. It's gonna look at things like your rating, your out of stock level, your badging, to help understand what products on the digital shelf are most effective or most valuable or most serve that shopper's need. One thing we've noticed that's a current technological limitation, but will definitely change over time, is that generally these AI shopping agents are just looking at text. They're not really interacting with or reading your images or your video in what the AI people would call a multimodal approach. They could in future, but they're not doing that right now. A recent 2025 Columbia University study found that badging was actually a huge benefit. For example, on Amazon, if you have a badge like overall pick or Amazon's choice, this badge gives your product an advantage as if you were 92% lower priced than your top competitor in the agent size. However, this type of visibility on site can come with some risks. If you have a sponsored tag, so if you're in an ad to get visibility, agents typically see this as a warning sign of bias. They don't like it when big brands try to buy their way into baskets. Typically, sponsored items can win, but only if their organic health is also very strong. Okay. So one of the core difficulties of dealing with these AI agents is what I've been calling the shrinking shelf. These AI agents act as ruthless filters. They don't actually shop as we think they shop, where they would look at every single product in a category or every single product that fulfills that customer's need and pick the best one. They do a non-exhaustive search. They're looking at just the top products to see which ones potentially are the right fit. They're looking for good enough, not perfect. You have to have the evidence on your PDP to pass that test, or else you're invisible to that agent. And as we go into the future of agentic shopping, this is one of my big concerns, that launching new products or being a challenger brand makes it very difficult to be found in these AI agents because they're picking products that have a ton of history, a ton of data moat to protect them, to protect the reasonableness of that agent's choice. Okay. So how do we know how these agents work? There are lots of studies that have been done, but one of the ones I've found most interesting is a bunch of researchers built what I've been calling a trading gym for AI, something that they've called the Deep Shop framework. They give agents a series of complex tasks with increasing levels of refinement about what type of product that the customer is looking for. For example, find me a waterproof jacket that's blue and a men's size medium under $100 with above a 4-star rating. And when we look at the error analyses of these different agents, they make basically 2 general types of errors. One is hallucination errors. Basically, they claim a product has a feature that it doesn't. So they say a jacket is blue when it's actually red. Or the other type would be grounding errors. So the example I gave was a 5 or 6 step filtration process based on different attributes. Typically, these agents have difficulty filtering correctly, but most of the time that filtering difficulty is because brands haven't completed all of the different variables or fields in their content. So the agent is trying to filter, but getting a lot of blanks, so it doesn't know which products actually might be blue if you didn't list the color. Okay. This brings us to the core mechanism of AI agents, trust. Trust isn't just a warm feeling that we feel about offloading some of this labor to a shopping agent. It's a prerequisite for what we call cognitive offloading. So the ability to say, hey, I trust this agent to do the job I want it to do. Trust acts as that type of lubricant in the engine of that shopping engine to reduce uncertainty. If trust isn't there, the engine breaks and the purchase doesn't work. This is if you didn't trust your agent, you would take back the control. So customers are looking for that convenience and that user experience to be really, really strong. Okay. Fantastic. So here are some ways that you can build trust with an agent. So research shows that trust really stands on 2 pillars, right? Competence, can the agent actually do the job? And benevolence. So do I think the agent is acting in my best interests? And there are a few ways that we can help agents do that. One is spec normalization. For example, the user asked for a gluten-free snack and you accidentally applied gluten-free to all of your SKUs in your category rather than the specific SKU that's actually gluten-free. The user buys that product, ends up with a product that they're allergic to, which might break trust in the agent and in your brand. A second way would be thin review depth. So someone might ask, hey, is this toy for my child's birthday easy to assemble? Your reviews don't say anything about that. Your content doesn't say anything about that. They open the box and they realize, hey, this actually is a 30-step process to put this together. They didn't get what they want. Their trust in that agent and in you is broken. And last but not least, as I've already mentioned, being only visible through sponsored placements is a big problem for brands. If agents end up picking products that are only visible in advertising, customers lose trust in the agent. They think you can just buy your way into baskets, and they're not sure that the agent is picking the best product for them, just the one that's being sponsored. As we see advertising roll out into AI agents, I think this will be a big point of friction between customers, retailers, agents, and brands. And I'm excited to see how this evolves over time. Okay. So how do we prepare that trust? One of the ways is price fairness. So this doesn't mean you need to be the lowest price. This means you need to have data in your PDP that validates that you're the right price. Another thing would be evidence signals. Do you have that overall pick badge? Do you have those reviews? You're no longer selling the product. Your job is to supply the proof to the agent. Okay, so one of the big things that agents do is move the conversation from keywords to key questions, helping the agent identify subjective needs. When a user asks for a thoughtful Father's Day gift, most standard catalog data fails. Thoughtful isn't something we can put in a spec field, right? It's not a tangible metric. But agents are really equipped to solve these questions by helping us map the hard specs to subjective needs. So these are things like, what are the use cases for your product? Are you having that within your PDP or answering the common FAQ questions? Do you have these types of intent signals in your title so that the agent can identify those needs and map that onto your product? Okay, so I do want to go through 5 quick fixes of what you can do to be prepared for AI shopping agents. 1, fix your titles. Put some intent in your titles. Show someone why they want this product, how it should be used. The goal isn't to stuff your product full of keywords like you would with old school SEO, but think about identifying those use cases. So things like a protein bar for workout recovery and a protein bar with high protein, given not high protein, but maybe 20 grams of protein, provide that additional proof that this protein bar meets your exact need. Okay, then make sure your content is picture perfect. You need to ensure that your content is filter proof. So that means for every single spec, put a tangible metric in there rather than a general idea about what that metric might be. For example, 12-hour battery instead of long lasting. If you leave a field blank and someone decides to filter by it, the agent can't find your product. That's a big issue. Another thing I've seen that's a big blocker for brands is being loose about multi-language content. So if you're in a country like Canada, where English and French are 2 common languages used to buy products online, LLMs are multilingual by default. And if you have very strong content in language A, but really weak content in language B, the agent doesn't know which one to believe. So both of your languages or all of your languages need to be very robust. Okay. Then 3rd fix, building trust with review depth. If the specs on your PDP are the what, the reviews are the how. Agents don't just pick things with the best rating, they actually read the reviews to try to find the product that has the best intent. That's why we need review depth. We should be targeting at least 25 reviews and recency. The agent is going to bias towards reviews that are more recent because they think those are the ones that are most actionable or most relevant. So we're looking for at least 10 reviews in the last 90 days. Last but not least, if possible, you want to make sure you're answering the questions either that come up in common FAQs, that come up in, for example, Amazon Rufus is listing some questions. You want to make sure you're covering as many of those questions as possible in your content or in your reviews to be prepared for that agent to answer common questions about your product or your category. Okay, then you want to show you're reliable. This is get a badge if you can, right? That overall choice, overall pick, Amazon choice is a huge boost. Additionally, you need to be in stock. If agents try to check out with your product and they can't purchase it, they'll stop buying it. They'll learn that this product isn't something I can actually complete a purchase on. They'll stop trying to do it. Last but not least, as I mentioned before, price fairness. These agents are typically value seekers by default. They're not going to pick the lowest price product all the time. They want to pick the product that has the best specs for the price. So if you're going to be more expensive, if you're in the high premium or luxury space, you need to be very, very clear about why your product is justifying that price point. Okay, so as we go towards generative engine optimization or AEO, whatever we want to call it, GEO, as I've hopefully demonstrated for you in those 5 previous fixes, the goal isn't to throw away what we've done with SEO. It's an evolution of it. It's to help things be a little bit better through things that'll make your products appealing both to human shoppers and to AI shoppers. So implementing these 5 fixes requires 3 motions. So the first would be C, take a look at your reviews to pinpoint the real questions and unmet needs your customers have. Step 2 would be the feed. Ensure the master product data across all of your products is consistent. Make sure what's live on site is consistent with your master data so that you never have to guess or the agent isn't looking for information that's not there. Last but not least, influence, track your performance, and benchmark those key metrics to measure the impacts of your fixes over time. As we go into agentic shopping, not only do the steps you have to take to optimize change, the steps we want to take to measure need to change as well. Our primary KPI in the future, which is maybe a little bit difficult to do, would be agent choice rate. This should be our new North Star. Basically, what percentage of the time when someone's looking for a product like mine, does the agent pick my product? That's generally very difficult to measure, but as we get better measurement tools over time, this is where I think we should be going. Until then, I would suggest two things that we could use to make sure we're moving down that path. One would be looking at a perfect store score, which is what we call it at Shalion. This would be like a digital content score or a product health score, making sure you're doing all of the things you need to do and to be visible on your PDPs for those agents. Second would be generative engine visibility. This would be using a tool like ours to go into those AI agents to put in some queries related to your product and see where you show up as a visible product. Maybe the agent doesn't choose you, but it lists you as one of the recommendations in future. This would give you a real visible scorecard on how agents are trusting your product. Okay, I do want to leave you with one strategic mandate as a closing thought before we jump into some Q&A. For the last 20 years, the goal was to get to the top of the page. Now the goal is about becoming the agent's default choice. So think about how to make yourself that agent's default choice, and by doing so, making your competitors invisible. Thank you very much. I'm gonna turn it over to Sarah for a quick poll and some Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack. There was lots of good insights. I think there's a lot of things for us to unpack and discuss further with Jose and Armando. But first, we're very curious to see in the audience, you know, just even in general, it's such a new topic. So I have a poll question that I'm going to launch on the screen now. So that question for everyone listening in is, how prepared do you feel your team is for AI shopping agents? I mean, maybe before we just heard from Jack. Select one of the following: not at all, exploring but no clear plan, built a plan but not executing it yet, or already executing a plan. So how prepared do you feel your team is for AI shopping agents? Not at all, exploring but no clear plan, built a plan but not yet executing it, or already executing a plan. It looks like we've got the majority of the audience's answers. So I'm now actually going to share those results up on the screen in about 5 seconds. Here we go. So 18% of people said they're not yet exploring. 67% said exploring but no clear plan, 9% built a plan but not yet executing it, and 6% already executing a plan. So this is very interesting to see, because most of the audience actually today are, you know, FMCGs, CPGs, so, you know, sort of slightly on the medium to large size, I would say. So established companies mostly listening in today. So those results are very interesting, and I'm curious to hear what you all think of those. So we'll start with you, Armando and Jose. What are your thoughts on that, and how does it maybe compare to where you guys are at?
Good question. Well, I think we are with the majority of the crowd, so we do have a plan in place, and we've started you know, some of that journey already. Because again, this is very, very important, as Jack was alluding, especially around GEOs and how, you know, how we need to work on the content, not necessarily, you know, the information on what we are sharing there in our PDPs, but more around how we're building those, right? So we do have a plan, we do have a path, and it's something that we're currently working on it. But if you want to add a little bit more on it.
I would love to thank Armando. But, well, from leadership perspective, it's clear that we have to act now to build tomorrow, right? The digital shelf will evolve. frankly speaking, it's not going to happen overnight, right? Delivering true agentic is hard. We're ran pilots, and it's hard to deliver true agentic. When you go into it, it's not going to be overnight. It's going to be more gradual. So to answer the question in terms of the plan and what we're focused on, we're relentlessly focused on delivering the fundamentals, developing the capabilities, the infrastructure. It's really important for us to develop and be able to deploy content at scale and at speed. And for that, you need the infrastructure and partnerships to do it. It doesn't matter if the LLMs and the agents are going to be influenced by X, Y, or Z. We don't know today. It's hard to know what the prompts are being put there, and the answers are incredibly personalized. But we know that if we can deploy good, relevant, branded content at scale that is meaningful for the shoppers at speed, we're going to be able to address those drivers.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, that does sound like, from what I've seen, Jack, maybe get your thoughts as well. It seems to be where everyone's at now. It's like, okay, we need to take this really seriously. We're starting to look into it and we want to accelerate, but it takes time. So Jack, what's your experience with some of the CPGs that you're working with at the moment?
I think my experience is that for CPGs, this field is moving at the speed of light. Since I built this presentation a few weeks ago, there have been so many moves in the market that I had to go back and readjust. Like, for example, Adobe just announced that they're going to buy SEMrush for the sole purpose of using that data to help figure out how to be visible within LLMs.
Right.
So and Target just announced a partnership with OpenAI. Like, it'll be moving fast.
Yeah.
I think for brands, the things you need to be doing are not that different from the things you already are doing. That being ready for human shoppers is in many ways the best way to be ready for agentic shoppers. And those core fundamentals don't jump out the window once you start thinking about robots shopping for you instead of people. I think the best prepared brands will be ones that have mastered trying to build online experiences for humans.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, thank you for sharing your insights on that. And I'm just looking through some of the audience questions now. I mean, the number one question, actually, which I knew it would be for you, Jack, is, can we have these slides? So yes, everybody, the answer is you will receive the slides from me in an email in 24 hours. And as Jack was saying, things are constantly evolving. So we might need to create a series of AI updates on this, which is an exciting prospect. But one of my questions for Jose and Armando, just to get the CPG perspective, because of course within CPG it's all about category management, right? How you're viewing your products in your category, and that's still a very omni sort of term, even more so still very much an in-store thing around looking at your category management. So how do you see AI agents reshaping the category dynamic, especially when it's categories that rely heavily on brand equity, trust, strong portfolio presence like Nestlé?
Yeah, good question. So I think from the category perspective, what we're seeing is that there are certainly certain fundamentals that won't go away. Like when you're building into brand trust, and Jack alluded to that earlier today as well. How do you build that brand trust? Well, you have a legacy. Some of our brands, as you guys know it, they do have that. But then how do you continue to have that trust? It's all around your ratings and reviews, how you're building those PDPs, and how you are, you're in control of that narrative of what is being said about your brands, right? So for that, on that end, like, it's very important to be, close to what people are saying about your products and about your, and the badges that you're getting out of that, right? Because if you're getting good ratings, then that you will get by default badges that then, the agentic shoppers will see. right? So it's all interconnected, right? So it's all about like how it wouldn't be any different from what is happening right now. It's just paying more attention to those details. Like maybe 10 years ago, ratings and reviews was something that we knew in the industry was important, but not probably necessarily on the forefront of what we needed to be taken care of. Now we need to, and it should be at the forefront, because what is happening, and we can see it right now with agents like ChatGPT, for example, LLMs, they're going to be scrapping all the data about all the reviews, and they're going to serve a summary to the shoppers. So how do we control that narrative? How do we make sure that we address the questions that the shoppers have? That's going to be paramount. And another thing from the category level is going to be, how do we as CPGs prioritize our portfolio, and where do we focus, right? How do we show up on the products that we want to be at the forefront as well? So for me, those will be the takeaways. Is it?
Well said, Armando. And Armando is our category expert in terms of e-commerce, and you put it beautifully. AI will evolve how shoppers shop. That shopping behavior is going to evolve. There's no doubt about it. Now, with new technologies, there's also a little bit of hype cycles, right? So it's really important to develop that critical thinking in the team, in leadership. Search has been dying since 2008, right? If it wasn't because of apps, it was because of social, or it was because of voice assistants. I did a little bit of research. The first article that I found from Business Insider about search dying in the hands of AI was 2019, right? So it's been dying a long way. As I said, it's really important not to fall in these hype cycles. Take a step back and understand that, yes, this is going to evolve how shoppers are buying our products online. It's one of the ways our shoppers are going to buy our products, right? It is especially important for the first baskets. What about the second basket, third basket? How does it more interact with loyalty? How do you interrupt the journey there to have your products in front of the shoppers? Ultimately, the marketing fundamentals and a good brand plan will make a difference. Brands with strong fundamentals in marketing, category development, commercial execution that creates joint value creation, those brands will win. Because at the end of the day, let's not forget, it's the consumer. And Jack, I think you said it, it's the consumer who will make that choice.
Yeah. Fantastic. That was very inspiring to hear, I'm sure, for the CPGs listening in. And a bit of a follow-up question, since we're on the topic of category management and sort of, winning within your category, of course, a big part of this, it relies on strong relationships and collaborations with your retailers. And now a big thing as well that a lot of brands want is more data, more information on the shoppers. So when you're looking at AI now at Nestlé, what new types of collaborations or data sharings do you think the CPGs will need when it comes to AI-driven discovery? What are you sort of seeing the retailers are open to? What do you sort of need from them?
That's a good question. So I think there's been a shift in the industry in the last 5 years. I mean, the recognition of all these new wave of technology and new ways of consumers shopping, right? And just how we're posing it, just CPGs, but also retailers that need to be where the shopper is. I think it's just making a big difference. And so because of that, and trying to meet the new shopper needs and how they shop and meet them where they are, is truly open up a new ways of working and a new ways of collaboration and how we're, joining into new ways of sharing data. So now, in terms of what we need, I think it's a dance of two, right? So CPGs and retailers, we work together hand in hand to understand what is it that the shopper needs, how long are they taking to make a purchase decision, how often they go. So it's just all those fundamentals that have been there forever. It's just now with all this new wave of technologies, CPGs, they have a portion of the story to tell, and we have as brands the other half. So how do we collaborate and work together? That's something that is on the works. I think there's still a lot of ground to go through. But in terms of what we're looking for, it's just more cohesive, more hand-on-hand collaboration of that information, especially around first-party data. So we are able to tell when, how, and how often the shopper shops at any given point in the journey.
Right, right.
It's beautiful. If I may add, and I'm just going to add a little bit, and retail partners are incredibly important for us as CPGs, as a leading CPG. As Armando said, sharing that data, we know our shoppers, they know their shoppers. The combination of those two is essential, and ultimately, it's also to have the roadmap go a little bit further than just delivering the year, which is essential, but as well as strategic is essential as well to know what is the roadmap in 3 years, right? If we're making the appropriate steps to be incredibly agile and deploy content at scale, if there's no way to connect our systems to their systems, there's going to be a little bit of a barrier there, and then there's a little bit of a friction, right? So how do we address that so we can win together in the long term?
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's all about collaboration. So I think that sort of, that sort of runs through in everything, regardless of whether you're talking about category management, shopper marketing, AI. So yeah, very important to collaborate with your retailers on this. And yeah, Jack, we've got a few questions for you, because you were discussing about the importance of optimizing your content now and your SEO and things when it comes to sort of what the agent is going to be able to see and how they're going to react to it. So a few questions are around whether the agents can read text on images, whether they can read text on PDFs, and then these are all different questions I'm kind of bundling together because they seem to be all around, what can it read, and is it also able to read text on social media networks, like Meta, Instagram, TikTok, and paid ads. So maybe you could share a bit around what are the ways in which the agents are able to read your text and your content.
Yeah, great question. So generally, agents are able to read text anywhere that they're allowed to go. The most advanced agents are what's called multimodal, so they can figure out how to interact with images and video or audio. What we've been seeing evolve very quickly, and sort of still the Wild West out there, is which websites, especially those domains out there that have the largest sources of traffic, think Amazon, Meta, TikTok, which ones of those domains are going to allow these agents access to their sites. Because just because they can technically read it doesn't mean that they're allowed to. What we've seen across agents thus far, not in a shopping context, but in a more general context, that agents do, or LLMs do, prioritize user-generated content as one of the core things to read. For example, Reddit has been having its day in the sun because that's a great place for UGC and a place where they've allowed these LLMs to go in and start mining for more user-level feedback rather than the value prop presented by the website itself that it's trying to reference. I do want to just make one point to link this back to what Jose and Armando have been saying. What we've seen thus far is that retailers have been not very transparent about what level of traffic to their site is going through these agentic systems.
Right.
And I think what I want to warn brands against is over-rotating to being super AI ready and forgetting the fundamentals. Like if we think about, I'm going to pick a random category. You pick a category that's maybe 20% digitally penetrated, and then only 2% of that digital traffic is through an LLM. If you spend all your time optimizing towards that, you're missing the core driver, which is how do I get people in an in-store experience to buy my product, even if they're researching it online, right? So I think those core fundamentals don't change, that new technology is here. And when we start to see it hockey stick, then maybe we change our minds. But right now, I think this is a, how do we kill two birds with one stone? How do we think about how to do the core basics of building amazing online experiences for people. And the side benefit is that they work for agents rather than doing the opposite, which is I'm going to build things that are only for agents and the human experience is going to be terrible. So just want to be mindful of that as we have this conversation.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a really good point, because it's all around, we don't want to sort of, miss the boat with this. We're going to spend so much time like learning and seeing how we can implement this. So I'm curious to hear from you both, Armando and Jose as well, how you balancing the need to experiment with AI whilst, sort of still looking at we call it now the traditional digital shelf SEO and retail media models. And maybe you could also share a bit around, how this fits into different team roles and sort of different departments within within Nestlé as well.
Take the first question and take the second. All right. So in terms of balancing the balancing act, and it's what we're seeing and the stats of it. It's let me start there in terms of that balancing act and what to prioritize. I love what Jack said. And his last remark, it's really important, and I absolutely love how Jack thinks about this. It's important not to get ahead of your own skis. So that balancing act and the data that we're seeing is that between 1% and 3% of traffic from what eMarketer or other sources are putting out there is the traffic that is going to retailers from these LLMs, right? So, and this is a fraction of the online traffic. Let's not forget that there's a lot of world out there as well that is not online. So balancing that and focusing still in what is relevant to deliver today is important. So hey, making sure our search results and everything that we're addressing the fundamentals, it's incredibly important. Content completeness is essential. Optional attributes, I love optional attributes, right? They're not optional anymore. That's a competitive advantage if you know how to do it well. And we've seen a little bit of the pendulum going back into also having a digital footprint is incredibly important. Having your own website that is up and running, that is optimized for LLMs, for a consumer experience that they know how to get around your website and it's relevant for them, is going to be also relevant for the LLMs. And making sure that digital footprint as well is out there, right? So collaboration with different departments, not only of commerce, also media departments, in terms of having a unison, strategy-driven, because it's important to start with the why, strategy-driven approach to the digital footprint in terms of how do we manage Reddit? How do we manage other platforms? I think the three main sources of LLMs are Reddit, YouTube, and all these consumer-generated content, including our own websites. So that cross-functional collaboration is essential, but it's essential to create the digital footprint, including the strategy of why we're doing it and how does it address the needs of the shopper.
Yeah, I would just say thanks, Jose. I would just add to that, like again, like what Jack was saying and what you were alluding to, Sarah. Like I wouldn't even call it like traditional, because traditional feels old. I will say foundational, because when when you're building a home, like you need those fundamentals to build the home on, and those are not going away. It doesn't matter what kind of technology there is now. Even like 3D printing houses, like you still need those foundations to print the house now instead of putting all the blocks together, right? So when I see that into this world that we're moving in e-commerce, like those traditional more like so fundamentals will still be there, won't change. You still need your titles, you still need your bullet points, you still need your images, but it's just how you're doing that now and how you're framing your search campaigns with more of a GEO approach than SEO approach. That's what is going to make the difference. And to your question around structure, I would say that this needs to be ingrained within the organization. It's just not just a task of one team. It's everybody's mission. So
Wow, powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We are running out of time, but there is one more question I'd love to very quickly get your thoughts, because a few people are asking this question around the importance of personalization in agentic shopping. So what strategies would you recommend for embedding this into your playbooks? So, you know, the effectiveness of agentic shopping agents, where things are getting personalized at the individual level, given that agents are, you know, heavily relying on personal data to tailor experiences. So Jack, maybe you could share your thoughts very quickly on this as well.
Yeah, I'll go fast. From a technical perspective, I think we aren't really at a place where brands and technology partners that are not doing the personalization have a really easy way to measure the personalization.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the things we can look to solve. There's some really interesting research about how to use quasi-personalized or persona-based shopping agents, where I build a shopper or a shopping agent that looks like a essential water customer, and then I try to buy water and I see what happens using that agent, and I try to measure how frequently does a customer like mine, or an agent that's meant to act like a customer like mine, buy my product. But we're still pretty far from that being the reality of something that all brands or most technology partners have deployed at scale.
Right. Okay. So since it's moving so fast, maybe something for us to discuss in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I'm back next week and I'll have a better answer.
Yeah, no, there's so many more questions, and you know, about the future of AI. So I think our next webinar should be, you know, sort of future predictions and trends for how AI is going to change the game. So thank you all. We've now run out of time. Thank you, Jose, Armando, and Jack, for your incredible insights. It's been fantastic hearing from you, and thank you everyone for listening in today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. You will receive the recording again from me, and stay tuned for some more exciting webinars coming your way. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you for having us and hosting us, Sarah. Jack, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.